Well, hello there, friends, lovers. Thank you for joining us, and how you doing? Thanks, this is 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy. Nasir, look at that sweater. That is electric. Goes with the earrings, too.
Yes, it does.
And we were just thinking about, it's been a while since the presidential election. I don't know, how many weeks has it been?
I thought it was a couple months ago.
It's really weird that it was just this week. I feel like we have lived weeks since then. And I know, judging by your social media activity, by your online comments, some of you are feeling the same way. Well, we've got a lot to say about that. I think maybe we can help you in that regard. And either way, we're going to have some fun. This is 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir. Today is Sunday, November 10th. November 10th, the 315th day. It's a leap year. We got an extra day. How is it moving so fast? After today, you've got 51 days left to make this your best year yet. Nobody's feeling it after election season, but that's over. That's done. Now it's Thanksgiving, Gratitude Month. Time to look at the producers of the world and be thankful for what they've given us and what we ourselves have put out there. Christmas is in just 45 days. Thanksgiving is yesterday. No. Thanksgiving's in 18 days. Well, Thanksgiving Part 2, we'll talk about that. And Halloween is in just 355 days. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to see you in the chat. I see the chat in YouTube is active, and that is good to see. Let me pop that out. And on the Facebook side, because I really do want to know, how are you doing? How's it going? What's on your mind? Because, folks have gone through some stuff, and we have too. I don't know, today I think was my first post-election day when it really kind of all just started getting to me in a bad way. People on the internet were... What's the word?
Less than their best?
Less than their best. They were less than their best. Not you. No. People who listen to or watch this podcast. You guys are awesome. You guys are flawless. You are perfect. But bad losers and really, really bad winners.
Oh, yes.
Do people not know what it means to be a good winner? How to accept your wins? How to actually celebrate? Oh, we won. I know there are people out there saying, well, we won, but there's still so much going on. And yeah, but take a breath, man. Show a little grace. Anyway, first I got to say, on this date, November 10th, and this will be easy to tie together because this is the day, and we talked about this recently, the Republican Revolution. This is the day when that actually happened. When all them Republicans back in 94 got elected to Congress. Last time we talked about this, it was because we talked about the last time that the United States had a balanced budget, the federal government. And why that happened was largely owing to the Republican Revolution. Well, that was on this date. For the first time in 40 years, if you weren't there, you don't know. The idea that, you get a Republican House or a Republican a Senate or the whole Congress. Republican, that doesn't happen. In my lifetime, well, for the first time in 40 years, the Republican Party won control of both the U.S. House of Representatives and the Senate. You UK friends with upper house, lower house, the commoners and the haughty types. Newt Gingrich, House of Representatives, Newt Gingrich takes over, and they start cutting taxes and deregulating and doing all these things. Bill Clinton was the president. Democrat, crazy guy, and his crazy wife were going to take over health care. A little deja vu there, or was that just prescience? Newt Gingrich comes in because everybody says, wait, I thought Clinton was just this nice guy from Arkansas. He seemed real friendly. And no, he wants, socialism. And they voted in House of Representatives, Senate, the whole Congress. Take over, balance the budget. They had a program called Project 220. No, wait. They had a program called The Contract with America. I guess Project 2025 came later. Man, I wish Project 2025 looked more... Actually, I take that back. If you've read Project 2025, and if you weren't looking for all the super scary bits, And I don't mean that to say they aren't there, because they really are, and there's a mess of stuff to be fought. Half of what's in there is very similar to what the contract with America promised.
Did you read the whole thing?
Yes. Well, I skimmed parts of it.
90 pages,
I skimmed
or?
it from the beginning to
Okay.
the end. I did not read it from start to finish. I skimmed it from start to finish. Because I don't think anybody has actually read it or could actually read it, except maybe some folks from the university. Again, this date, 1994. 94. I like the, it was a midterm election, but because it goes by 20s, it was exactly 30 years ago today. Well, what else happened exactly 30 years ago today? In that Republican Revolution, it included the election of Salvatore Bono. In other words, Sonny Bono. We talked about Sonny Bono being the mayor of Palm City in California, and entertainers, as politicians. When we talked about Jesse Ventura and Arnold Schwarzenegger and Ronald Reagan and some other guy used to do a game show. I forget, he was a pro wrestling guy too. Maybe I'm thinking of Jesse Ventura. Somebody else got elected like that. But yeah, Sonny Bono, Sonny and Cher, I got you, babe. God, I got to watch Groundhog Day again. Was elected to the U.S. Congress on this date in 1994. Again, further proof that anybody can be elected. And actually, there's some great quotes in the articles on him. Bono, I'm saying Bono. Sonny Bono, I'm you get him confused with the other guy, the mononym guy, Bono. But no, Bono
Box.
brought to Congress a rare skill. He could make lawmakers, even the most pompous among them, laugh at themselves. Well, by my philosophy, humility is not a virtue, but in this context, they absolutely should have laughed at themselves, or at least been willing to see beyond their preconceptions, and Bono was able to do that. So, yes, happy Election Day, Sonny Bono. No longer with us. We lost him to a skiing accident 4 years later. Very sad, but always struck me as a genuinely good guy. Related to this, a little orthogonally, but it is Remembrance Day, Remembrance Sunday. If somebody's passing out poppies, by all means, buy one and put it on your shirt, your jacket. Some people are starting to think that the poppies are a sign of being pro-war, and so the anti-war crowd is against them, to which I say pshaw, and absolutely do show your patriotism. In some places, they are selling those paper poppies tomorrow here in the United States. That's our Veterans Day. Mm-hmm. So make sure you do celebrate that. I am absolutely pro-war. When it is a war of self-defense, when it is a righteous war, then you absolutely are right to celebrate self-defense. Incidentally, federal government offices are closed tomorrow for Veterans Day, but the New York Stock Exchange is not. And some of us are enjoying the inevitable post-election boom on the stock market. So if you've been enjoying that, you can enjoy it tomorrow too. Interesting to me. Yeah, the reason Veterans Day is on the 11th is that was the date that the United States, or excuse me, that not the United States, the European powers signed the Treaty of Versailles. Let's see, the U.S. Senate didn't ratify the treaty until July of 1921. But it was basically over on that day, and it was absolutely the right day to celebrate those who fought and won World War I. Another event that I used to think until today, the TIL memes, today I learned, and you learned something that nobody actually realized. I used to think the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald happened, well, at least well before I was born. Before the 60s. It turns out the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, even if you're not a Michigander like we are, even if you have not studied the Great Lakes, you know the story. You know the story from the song, the Gordon Lightfoot song, The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. What I didn't know, and maybe some of you did, some of you will be surprised, that actually happened on this date in 1975. I don't know, maybe because the song starts with, the legends are told from the Chippewa on down of the Great Lake. Like it's old story. Like this is an old story. No, it turns out Gordon Lightfoot wrote that song the year after that accident happened. So this is the date. And very sad.
Well,
very sad story.
no, what
The other thing that
what lake was that on that it happened?
that
Lake
was
Superior?
the great lake called Gitchigumi, which is the Indian name for Lake Superior.
Yes, Lake Superior.
And it's interesting because it was a cargo ship, iron ore. It's a special type of iron ore.
Yeah.
The biggest ship at the time that it was built on the Great Lakes broke all sorts of records for transport and speed. And another thing I didn't know until studying up for this evening was there were only 29 crew members. That's actually mentioned in the song. You think I would remember that? Only 29 people. Well, 29 deaths is a tragedy, and the circumstances and all of that. And in the song, The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, he sings about the Mariners' Church. Mm-hmm. In fact, the last time Amy and I went to church, unless you count New Orleans when we weren't attending services, but the last time we attended services at a church was the Mariners' Church. Some of us call it the Old Mariners' Church in downtown Detroit, right next door to the Renaissance Center, right by the tunnel. And in the song, they talk about at the Mariners' Church, they rang the bell 29 times. One for each sailor that was on the ship. Last year they rang it 30 times. Very sad.
Yeah, the last time we went was my birthday a few years ago. Yeah, it was interesting. And we found out that the Catholic Church, or at least that church, provided gluten-free wafers in case.
Yes, please let us know if you prefer a gluten-free wafer. If you want the gluten-free Christ, you can get that now, apparently, in many churches.
That tickled us to no end.
It did. Oh, in case it wasn't obvious, the reason they rang the bell 30 times last year is when Gordon Lightfoot passed away.
Wow.
So, yes, today is the day we remember the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Again, interesting to read the history because it was a ship in service for decades and did so many voyages, so many people worked there, so much commerce, so many good things. We always remember the tragedy at the end, but it's worth looking up the history as well. One more. Happy birthday to Sir Timothy Miles Bindon Rice. In other words, Tim Rice, the great lyrical composer. I don't know, is he a composer? He's a lyricist. I guess you don't say a lyrical composer. Or maybe you do. Famous, of course, for his work on Broadway, but I, of course, know him as the lyricist on some of my favorite Disney films. He's still with us, and he's 80 years old today. So it's a good day to go out and watch Aladdin or Beauty and the Beast or any of that era where Tim Rice basically owned lyric writing for the films of Disney. Good stuff.
Aladdin was a great film. Absolutely amazing.
It was. It is a work of art, unquestionably. Under shameless self-promotion, what are we listening to this week? Well, of course, I linked to the audio of The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald for you to listen to that. But this week, it's I can't believe it's only been 1 week. The last time we got together, and thank you, incidentally, friends, if you shared that episode, because it has twice as many views on YouTube and I think twice as many on Facebook.
Yes.
We were in a different town. We were in Dexter, Michigan.
Right.
And broadcasted live from a dear friend's home, one of the greatest musicians in Michigan, certainly the greatest musician in Dexter.
Yes.
And that was a hoot, and that was great fun, but we talked about the upcoming election. And we talked, at least my theme for the show was, just checking out the chat here. My theme for the show was, don't even think at this point about the election. Think about what you want to do after the election, what you want your demeanor to be. Find out the good things that each of the politicians offered, and don't scoff and say, no, there were none. There were. And celebrate those, or at least focus a little bit on those after the election, so that when you say, oh my gosh, this person won and therefore it's the end of civilization as we know it, you can at least say, yeah, but they'll probably lower these restrictions, remove these prohibitions, lower taxes, or whatever the good things that they actually did and will hopefully do again. Well, course, 2 days after that, we had the actual election.
Yes.
And the results of the actual election, and then we picked our jaw up off the floor. It wasn't just surprising who won, but how much they won and what happened to the Congress. Okay, there's a album by the band Utopia, which was Todd Rundgren's side project. They were
good stuff.
Semi-progressive. Sometimes they weren't even progressive. They were more pop, but quirky pop. And they did an album called Swing to the Right. And whenever I hear that, it reminds me that was an expression back in the 1980s. Ronald Reagan gets elected. The country has swung to the right.
Yes. Well, if you wanted to, depending on how you define the right.
And arguably in 1994, we swung to the right again. Well, this time we've swung to... We've used the expression "the new right" before, so this is a new Reich. No, I'm sorry,
A new right.
I'm sorry, a new right that we haven't seen before. And we'll get through this too. We really will. Last night. Last night. Again, this week starts with an on-location podcast. Then we have the election. Then we have the election results. And the week ended with ThanksGLOing.
ThanksGLOing. Yes. Yes, be thankful and come to Glow meeting.
Right.
And it was a very special Glow meeting because I put together Thanksgiving dinner along with the help of Robert, who made very delicious mashed potatoes with just a hint of nutmeg, which he likes to put there. Gives it a nice nutty sort of feeling.
Highlights were the sides that Amy produced, but also you ordered a fresh turkey.
A fresh turkey, a freshly deceased turkey.
Now, we've had fresh turkeys from the grocery store. You go to a grocery store, you get a fresh turkey, it's better than a frozen one. You don't have to thaw it out, but it also cooks better. But no, this was a turkey from a farm near where we were celebrating. And yeah, its metaphysical status changed the day before we picked it up, or it might have even been on that day.
I think it was the day before.
I think it was the day before.
Yeah.
It was harvested the day before we celebrated.
Well, they call it dressed, Dressed. If you get dressed, that has a different meaning.
You would think they would call that undressing it. I guess that doesn't really fit either. So macabre. So I want to give a huge shout out to the 14 people who celebrated ThanksGLOing, Thanksgiving with us at Glow, Great Lakes Objectivists last night.
Yeah.
You guys are the best. And thank you for, almost everybody brought something.
Yes.
So our table was overloaded with goodies, and it was a good day.
We had a lot of desserts that were brought. We had a really delicious salmon spread. I actually received a couple of gifts from people who came over. It was really, really sweet.
Super sweet.
And it was really nice. And we got to sit around and talk about our favorite parts of the Fountainhead, which really enlightened the mood, and it was good.
And that's exactly where I want to go with that, because it's such, I was going to say an antidote, but that's not even the right word. It's such a reminder that we don't need an antidote. We don't need an antidote from this week. We need kindness. We need graciousness. We need insight. We need wisdom. We need a lot. But we don't really need an antidote. We just need to be our own best selves and be good to one another. Now, if you have not had a social event since the election, or since whatever challenges you may be going through, a lot of people who watch the show, listen to the show, are globally, didn't go through the U.S. election the same way we did, even though I know that does have global significance. But as I say, some people just don't get it. Some people were less than gracious. There are people, and I've seen it even more from the winners than the losers. And my advice in that regard is, don't let that be you. And the reason is, it's not a good look. What I mean is, if you look in the mirror, it's not a good look. It's not a sign of strength. It's not a sign of self-confidence. It's not even a sign of moral righteousness. Schadenfreude is for losers. When you win and then you gloat, you've essentially thrown away half of what you've won for. If you are working from a position of strength, you don't do that stuff.
Right.
It's interesting that in competitions afterward, they have the winners and the losers shake hands. Well, if you think politics is an issue of the good guys and the bad guys, really virtuous people and real enemies, you may still opt to shake their hand out of decorum, not for their sake, but for the sake of the competition, the people involved, the office. If you can't do that, you have given away half of your power.
Mm-hmm.
And more than that, where's the fun in that? My God.
Sore winners.
Sore winners. It's bad to be a sore loser. It's bad to lose and then get ugly about it. But how much worse is it to be a sore winner?
It's very rare that I unfriend somebody on Facebook, but I had to unfriend 2 people this week.
Yeah. It's
Not one, but 2.
Now, for some people, that's normal, but we don't do that.
Yeah.
Like, I deleted comments. I hate deleting comments. I think it's a vile thing to delete a comment on Facebook because it just ruins things. It ruins communication. It's a way of saying, the line from Jack Nicholson, "You can't handle the truth." And it makes conversations stilted, and people now are answering things that aren't there anymore, and it's just... But people were being just... not just nasty, not just rude, not just unpleasant, but unnecessarily and stupidly so. And there's just no reason for that. Other than nihilism. Somebody gets their kicks out of being negative.
I don't know. I mean, I had one person who I unfriended who thought that, I don't know what this person was thinking, but it was just so insulting what he put in the comment. And I'm like, you know what? I don't need this in my life.
Yeah,
I don't need it.
Tom Harrison in the chat says, "When you lose, say little. And when you win, say even less." It's an interesting aphorism. I think I can agree with that. Again, if you are winning and you are in a position of strength.
Right. I'm thinking to myself, what is this person's motivation? Are they thinking to themselves that because there is a consensus for who he voted for,
mm-hmm.
that maybe my eyes will be more open wide to the possibility that I'm wrong?
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? I don't need this. And then there was another person who I unfriended who just outright started cussing in the comments, and I thought,
yeah.
No, I don't need this person in my life.
Right. Why? Why would you want that? Who would want that? Why would anyone want to be like that? And why would you want to tolerate that?
Yes.
Now, I get it, because I've got friends who I respect and admire on both sides of just about every issue. And they will be, because of their passions, because of their values, they will find themselves enraged, outraged, and feeling that sense of, again, schadenfreude, that their enemies are miserable, and they have glee because their enemies should be miserable. But that doesn't actually serve you.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of glee at somebody else's misery does not help your cause.
Right.
It is a betrayal of your own values.
Yes.
Now, I want to take a break from all of that. Mm-hmm. I feel like I could go on, and I really don't want to, because I'm trying to make the point, again, that we need to be better because the issues do matter. These are important values, and there are valuable people on both sides of the issues. I'll get into that later.
Yeah.
No, maybe I won't. I'll just leave that there. What I really want to talk about is I left one thing out of the holidays. It's actually Vanilla Cupcake Day.
Oh, look at this. Robert has vanilla cupcake.
And I have the tiny little vanilla cupcake here. I took a picture of it, but iCloud, iTunes, Apple, whatever, didn't sync them up quick enough for me to get them on the show here. But it's the new iOS. I trained my phone to always synchronize my photos whether I'm on battery power or not, and the new iOS seems to have reset that. Point is, vanilla cupcake. Well, why would anybody want a vanilla cupcake? I mean, one of the things that was out on the table last night for ThanksGLOing was mini cupcakes, and it was one of these packages where they have 6 vanilla cupcakes and 6 chocolate cupcakes, and at the end of the night, there was a chocolate cupcake left. and there were 6 vanilla cupcakes left. Poor vanilla. Vanilla doesn't get respect. And I think part of the problem is cheap vanilla. Foods that use imitation vanilla versus the expensive stuff, just they're not that good. But good vanilla, it's like white chocolate. It's a beautiful thing. See, now I've really started the controversy there. White chocolate, that's a contradiction in terms.
Pineapple on pizza, and then you wash it down with Dr. Pepper.
Yes. So I mentioned this on Facebook. I never delete comments. I hate having to delete comments. And somebody who will not be named for a few seconds, and then he will be named, Jim Ashley decides to comment on there. And can you believe it? He taunts me.
Oh, Jim, what you doing?
Well, he tells me, well, go ahead and delete this comment. No. Folks, if you have seen that comment on Facebook, now I'm calling on the Nasir Army here. I don't usually do this. At the end of the show, we'll encourage you to like and share and maybe join our Patreon. But no, this time I'm calling on the Nasir Army to share
Nasir Army.
The post on Facebook. And I've already shared it to X. You can find it there as well. Share this intolerable taunting, because this will not stand. No, this is the one time in which I want to see cancel culture kick in all the way. This will not stand. So, needed to put that out there, folks. We're going to make Jim Ashley famous. Absolutely.
There you go.
Yeah, what did he say? Did he say double dog dare you?
Yeah, double dog.
He double dog.
Can't.
I mean, if somebody dares you, you can be like Howard Rourke and shrug it off. But if he double dog dares you to delete this comment, Robert, well, you see what you get for that. Now, what are we laughing for? Donald Trump's going to be the president again, and he's trying to save the country.
Wait, you mean that game show host?
Game show guy, wrestling guy. And the left is responding to that in that they're trying to shut him down. They're dangerous. They're trying to destroy the country. And why are we being light and charming and amusing and having a good time? Why are we even doing a podcast? We should be out there fighting. We should be on the streets with signs, except the freaking daylight savings time. It's now dark at this time of day in North America. And the answer is what changed on Tuesday is not enough to shut us down or to shut us up. And I hope that y'all realize that too. Now, I am not going to commit the error of toxic positivity and say, oh yeah, everything's fine and it's not that big a deal. No, it is a big deal. But it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the country. And we do have the means to fight whatever we think needs to be fought of what comes of this next stage. And the reason why I want to point out the Republican takeover in 1994 is that was a midterm election in response not just to Bill Clinton, but in response to Bill Clinton's Congress, the House of Representatives and the Senate that worked with Bill Clinton. Midterm elections in the United States are a thing. And I see too many people saying, all hope is gone. By 2028, Donald Trump will have solidified everything he wanted to do. And then J.D. Vance will be elected president because Trump will, own the country and make his forces even stronger. And so let me just say, using my brilliant understanding of psychology and political philosophy, which I'm sure you all know and trust, that ain't going to happen. Because the next election isn't in 2028. The next election is in 2026. And it's not going to be Newt Gingrich coming in to save the nation, but it is going to happen that somebody will. If really bad things happen, the kind of really bad things that too many people, maybe people should think are going to happen, you will see that swing. I won't call it a swing to the left. I think it'll just be a swing to the middle, a swing to normalcy. And normal in the United States is a mixed bag, but I'll take it. People wonder, why am I still cheerful? Why am I still optimistic? Why do I still have hope? The short answer is that 90% of what happens in the United States and in the world has nothing to do with politics. But the longer answer is, I don't even think it's over politically. No. To steal a line from Kenneth Branagh in a film you all should have seen maybe over the Halloween month, this is all far from over. And this is all far from over. That's what I say.
Yeah, I mean, so, I used to be a political activist. For what it's worth, just off the top of my head, the things I can think about are, one, keep in touch with your friends. If they're important to you, make sure that you have their cell phone numbers so that you can reach them, via an actual telephone. I don't know. I don't want to sound too dystopian here, but that's actually a good policy anyway. But I mean, just in case you need to check in with people, if you have people who are immigrants, or who are trying to solidify their citizenship here, and they haven't yet, or they're still going through all of the really nightmarish hoops that exist with regard to immigration, reach out to them, see if there's any way you can help them. I plan on doing that. I for a couple of my friends, and see if there's anybody else who might need my help. Just keep in touch with the people who matter most to you, and the people that you like, and the people that you admire, and make sure everyone's all right. And see, of course, what you can do in terms of communicating to politicians, writing letters. You could even, this might actually be a really excellent opportunity to find, I would say, more honest people on the left. And they're out there, and try to reason with them, and try to give them an alternative, or try to give them something to think about, something to introspect on, because I think right now, people on the left are in the most highly introspective phase of their political thinking. So, send them good ideas from Ayn Rand. Send them, Ayn Rand's Man's Rights and the Nature of Government. Put a little cover letter in there and say, if you're for fighting for abortion rights or fighting for immigration rights, here's some really good perspectives on this. There's a lot of content out there specific to those political issues, and send it to them. And, make them aware that the left has not been kind to individual rights for many decades. A century, maybe. And it's really time for people to start thinking in terms of individual rights, and limited government. And, people might be more receptive to that right now. So that's another thing. I think, remind the people who voted for your friends who voted for Donald Trump that, when and if bad things happen, like mass deportation, or, trying to actually institute a federal ban, even though he said he wouldn't, on abortion, and many other things too. Tariffs are a big one. Just keep people informed. Keep people, try to educate the people who are in your circle of friends and influence. And that's what you can do. And I know it sounds like more work, but, go outside of your bubble, go outside of your echo chamber, and try to find reasonable people to talk with. That's all we could do.
Yeah, I love the idea of sending people Ayn Rand writings, and you're not going to do that and say, well, here's why you lost, or you need to change everything you believe. I would send it to them and say, this is how you defeat MAGA.
Yes.
This is how you defeat Donald Trump next time. You need to embrace these ideas and, drop the reasons why you lost last time. I wouldn't even put it that way, though. I would keep it gracious. I would make it honest advice. Mm-hmm. And that can be done. And people can be receptive to that. I always say, if something I do fails, I don't look for who's to blame. I just say, what can I do to succeed next time? So if I can't get through to somebody because they're on the left or they're on the right, the question isn't, well, what's wrong with them? Why weren't they receptive? What's the crazy thing that... No, it's just, okay, how do I change my approach? What can I do? Now, it may turn out it's impossible, but the question is always, what can I do, not why were they wrong? Why were they to blame for this not working? So yeah, I love your idea of send people, and these resources are available online. You can point people to them, although sometimes it's better to put a pamphlet or a whole book in their hands. You get a little more response by having a little more skin in the game. Love that idea.
Yeah, Rob Jasinski sent out an email recently about, with his thoughts on it right after, his raw thoughts right after the election that morning. And he came up with a phrase that I hadn't heard any objectivist say, actually, probably ever. Maybe, I don't know, maybe not. But it's basically act locally, think nationally. Or when I heard it, it was actually on the cover of one of my favorite punk rock bands, DOA, and they said, act locally, think globally. Those globalists.
Yeah, well, that's the old expression. Yeah, think of the whole world, but do what you can where you are.
Yes, and I keep pondering that and thinking about that, and I thought, maybe I should, because if you do act locally or get involved locally, you're going to be a lot more psychologically visible to people, and people may be a lot more receptive to you because you're a real person that they know, and you live in the same city as them. And I thought, what, maybe that's actually a pretty good idea at this point. Reach out to people locally. And, we were tossing around ideas last night at our GLOW meeting about, how can we maybe even reach out to local high schools, figure out a good business model with regard to spreading Ayn Rand's ideas, and making it easy for people to understand and learn some of these better political ideas, if they're interested. And we're still tossing around those ideas, but we used to hold GLOWcons, or Great Lakes Subjectivist conferences, and those were good. Those were nice, and we had some some of the general public come to them occasionally, but it was kind of insular. It was like, okay, let's kind of practice our speaking abilities, and get used to speaking in public, which is a really wonderful tool to have. But we really weren't out there recruiting people or, delivering the good news, as they say, to total strangers. And, so it's interesting. I think this might be a really excellent time to start delivering news to total strangers.
So 2 years ago, around this time of the year, we did an episode called Make America Grateful Again. And I think it's time to do exactly that. The election season is behind us. If you feel like you are still knee-deep in it, you might be spending too much time online. At least that's what I was feeling like today. But no, the election's over. Figure out what our strategies are for the next 2 years before the midterm election.
Yeah.
And for the next 4 years, depending on what else happens. One thing I'm not going to do too much of is worrying about what's coming beyond the extent to which I can do something about it. So there are certain changes I can make to my financial situation depending on things I think are going to happen. There are certain things I can do with regard to my personal life to support people who are challenged by what has happened over the last week. I'm not going to worry too much above and beyond just staying informed and doing what I can. But isn't that the advice I've always given? Isn't that what we all should be doing? And I think that's the wisdom behind that catchphrase. Think globally, but act locally. In other words, stay aware of what's going on beyond the world, but, beyond the world. Well, that would be Elon Musk. No, think about what's going on in the world, and beyond the world too, I suppose, as we get that far. But, and I'll send this one out to the philosophy community, especially the objectivist community. Philosophy is interesting. And it's important, but it's also like a hobby, a valuable hobby. But we spend a certain amount of time on philosophical notions that we never really use. They don't improve our lives. It's interesting, and it is valuable to study the history of philosophy. When we see what the sophists did, and then we see the changes coming into Plato and Aristotle, or before Plato, the Socratics, we can identify errors. We can understand better how we got where we are today, and we can see, oh yeah, don't do that. Although here's a bit of wisdom maybe that I hadn't considered, and I need a little more of that, a little more of the examined life, for example. I don't want to be a full Socratic. I will adopt aspects of the Socratic method, and I will live an examined life, but... Okay, so great. History of philosophy, learn some of that. And to the extent that it has some value to you, or at least some interest to you. But philosophy is an applied science. Mm-hmm. And so when we go through good times, like the Halloween season that was so much fun all through October, or when we go through challenging times like the election season, which thankfully is over, and as we come into the remainder of the holiday season with Thanksgiving and Christmas, I want you to be selfish. And obviously I don't mean narcissistic or hedonistic. No, what I want you to do is I want you to spend more time with your values and less with what are merely potential or not even potential threats or disvalues. Do what matters and do more of it. I want you to be a selfish mofo. I want you to be super selfish. That means be good to yourself and be good to anybody and everybody who's of value to you. And extend at least the graciousness of that out to anybody who's a potential value to you. You're surrounded by them. If you go to department stores, if you go to grocery stores, if you go to restaurants, if you go to sporting events, if you go to concerts, I could go on and on. You are going to be up against people, most of whom are decent people, and in that context of the shared experience are some, even if just a trivial, value to you. There are very few people out there who are genuine disvalues to you. I know some of you are saying, what are you talking about? There's millions of people who work for the U.S. government, and most of them are disvalues to me. No, I mean in real life, in your day-to-day experience, in what you actually do every day. And I'm always surprised by people who tell me, everybody from the other side of the aisle, whether you regard yourself as left or right or something else altogether, everybody from that other side is driven by envy or hatred or jealousy or greed or selfishness or whatever the insult is. And I will ask people like this in real life or on the internet, well, don't you have any relatives from the other side of the aisle who are also relatively decent people? Mm-hmm. Don't you have any peers, people you work with? who are not the same politics as you, but are decent people, productive and doing things and making your company work, and the same thing with almost everything else you do. And I'm always surprised because occasionally I'll get somebody who will say, no, everybody that I know who is, say, right wing, or everybody I know who is left wing, is an evil, envious, hate-filled person, and they have no value whatsoever. I don't doubt that a few of you are stuck in that situation, but if you are, I hope you can see beyond it.
Yeah.
And I would question a little bit if you tell me, yeah, I don't know anybody on the other side of the political aisle who's also a decent person. Mm-hmm. If so, start reading newspapers, start reading biographies, start looking at history. I mean, I've known people who've said there aren't any decent people who aren't objectivists. Like, there weren't any decent people before 1957? Before Atlas Shrugged was published? There just weren't any heroes?
Right.
There weren't any iconically magnificent people? No, that's not true. And it's not true now. No. It's a good world out there, full of good people, and you deserve to be with, or at least get value from, those good people. Thanksgiving's coming. This is the month of gratitude. We got through election season, but that's done. That's over. And I want to see you grateful, not as a duty, but just because, oh my gosh, I'm surrounded by stuff that people have produced and I get to buy it and enjoy it. And wait, I'm surrounded by those people too. How awesome. So I want to look in the chat and see what y'all have had to say.
Yeah, we've got Tom. He says, I'm a magazine collector. Does anyone know if Ayn Rand was ever on the cover of Time, Newsweek, Life, or any mainstream magazine over the years?
Good question. We should make a note of that.
There's actually, okay, so I actually have a card that's sitting over there. It's a Time Life card. It's like a collector's card. My friend got it on eBay for me, and she put it in a really cute floating frame, and then she put little sticker letters on it to spell out who is Amy Nasir.
Oh, that's cute. So yeah, I don't know if she was on the cover of Time or Life, but she was on a Time Life trading card. Right,
and of course she was, her image is on a lot of objectivist, material, probably some libertarian, Reason magazine, maybe, but it's definitely on the Objective Standard.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that because I was going to mention, let's bring it up here. For those of you watching the video version of the show, custom guitar picks. And it turns out one of the illustrations of Ayn Rand out there made a very charming guitar pick. And I posted this on the social media, and somebody even asked me, are you selling those? Well, no, I'm not selling those. But if you make it onto our Christmas card list, that's right, you can find us on Facebook and ask to be on our Christmas card list. If you're already on that list, just let us know that you're still at the same address and interested in receiving a Christmas card. I'm going to pop one of these into the cards of people I know who are interested in Ayn Rand. If I know that you're a guitar player, or if you tell me that you are a musician, I'll make sure I include the full set of 3. They came in light, medium, and heavy. That's going to be fun.
Here's the so on the right. That's
that back up.
That's me and Joey Keithley. Joey Shithead Keithley is his full name. He's a lead singer and songwriter of DOA. I mentioned one of my favorite Canadian hardcore punk rock bands. And he and I met, and it was so much fun. Oh my gosh, that's one of the highlights of my year.
And for some of you who've never seen the picture on the left, which kind of goes with that.
That's me when I was 18. Yes. And when I was a punk rocker. So I was, a couple years before this image was taken, I discovered Ayn Rand and just loved it. And couldn't find any other philosopher like her. Funny enough, I was hooked.
So there you go. We'll share that information more later when I'm ready to start actually writing out those Christmas cards. We didn't do as many last year. I know the year before we sent out 60 odd, I forget the number, but a lot, dozens and dozens.
Yeah.
And looking forward to doing that again because, again, the holiday season is here. It is time to leave politics behind. What else is going on in the chat?
Yeah, we've got a question from Christopher about the pillow behind me. Yeah, this is from Ayn Rand to me. No, kidding.
Well, it's funny because one of my favorite people out there, James Valiant, told a story on the social media, on the Facebooks. Mm-hmm. He was hanging out with Leonard Peikoff, as one does.
As one does.
And Leonard said, just in the middle of a conversation, it popped into his head, and he told James, Ayn Rand would have liked you. And you can imagine that he was flattered by that. But, we've kind of, around here, we've always had the thought,
Ayn Rand would have loved us.
us.
She would have loved us. She'd love me. I knew this. I already know this. And
so we have a pillow here from Ayn Rand. Well, not literally from Ayn Rand.
Robert got this for me. It says, "Dear Amy, metaphysically the only authority is reality, epistemologically one's own mind. The first is the ultimate arbiter of the second."
And some of you have heard the story about why we're able to quote that one so easily from memory.
It says, "Love always, Ayn Rand."
Love always, Ayn Rand. We never got to meet Ayn Rand. Maybe she would have loved us, maybe not.
She would have loved us.
I think she would.
Oh my God.
Because I think
she'd be absolutely thrilled.
I think we could have offered her one of the things that James Valiant gets from his friendship with Leonard Peikoff, which is admiration without fawning, without treating her anything less than as a real person. And maybe not, but that's the origin of the pillow. Since you asked, thank you for asking.
Yeah, so...
What else have we got in the chat?
So Robin says, "For me, the holiday season is more like a painful obligation where my family relations hurt me a lot emotionally this season."
Yeah.
If you have to go, I mean, I don't know exactly if you really do have to, because you could say no, it is your life. It is your life. You may have consequences, but is that worth going through those consequences than another, horrible holiday season of...
Yes. And you can be, and this is interesting because we don't usually think of it. We think, well, I got to make up a reason to tell them, and then I can tell them I'm not going. In other words, I got to lie. Or I have to do the obligation because otherwise they're just going to make my life more miserable anyway. And both of those are real, and I'm not criticizing if you find yourself in that circumstance. But you have the right, you don't have the obligation, either way, to do or not to do, but you have every right to say, thank you for the invitation, but I'm not going to be available this year.
Yes, very, very thoughtful that you have included me, but I'm not going to be available this year.
And if they ask, do you have something else going on? Just explain that I'm just not going to be available. I just can't make it this year.
Yes.
Well, what else is going on? I don't want to get into that. I'm just letting you know. I appreciate the invitation, but I'm not available this year.
Yeah.
If they press you hard enough, if they get really ugly, then you can certainly tell them the ugly truth of it's just becoming a sacrifice. Coming over. It's just hurts me, and I don't think you want that.
Yes.
You don't want to hurt me, do you? You don't have to start singing Boy George and Culture Club, but you can ask them, do you really want to hurt me?
Yeah. Is that how you want your life to be? I'm going to invite so-and-so, and they're going to be miserable coming, and I'm just going to enjoy their misery. It doesn't make sense.
And if they have the stones, if they have the cojones to say, well, I think it's more important that you're here than that you're having some good time, then you can say to them, well, thank you for being so forthright, but that's exactly why I won't be there.
You know what? Here's another idea, Robin. Find a way to schedule something for that day. Seriously.
That's a good strategy.
Like find some other place to be. Find some other place to be, and or find something else to do.
Yeah. That is kind of a last resort. The old advice says one of the important things in life is learn how to say no without justifying yourself. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I understand that doesn't always work. And Amy, you're right. Sometimes the best you can do, because you're dealing with somebody irrational, is create a situation where you can be honest and get the result you want.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily have to tell them what you scheduled for yourself. But, you've got to remember that your time is important. That's all you have in life. Your time. That's all you have in life. It's really important. So schedule something. Find some activity for you to do, or a place to be, or people to talk to, or whatever it may be, and say, and you don't even have to tell them what it is, but do it so that you psychologically have some incentive to be as forthright as you can be and unrelenting as you can be with your thank you, but no.
Yeah. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying, oh, yeah, I know your situation. That'll go great. I totally understand that. I'm just making the point that you have the right. And you've got to give yourself, if this word resonates, you got to give yourself permission to be self-assertive.
You have plenty to do, Robin. He says, I don't have anything else to do. You have plenty to do. You can schedule, in other words, curate your day. It's not arbitrary to curate your day. If you want to say, you know what, I have this, I'm going to binge watch something on television, whatever it is. You may think it's lame, but it's something that you can curate. And you can say, no, I do have something to do. And, give yourself a break. Give yourself a break for 1 year, and at least. And think outside the box. Don't think that your time is some arbitrary thing. You deciding on what you want to do for 5 or 6 hours or a whole day is something you can do. It's not arbitrary. It is actually objective. And make it real to yourself. So there's my advice for what it's worth.
Yeah.
But,
And there are places you can go. There are people you can see. There are events for people who don't have anybody to spend Christmas with.
Yes.
They won't be objectivist events, but they don't need to be. That is not a requirement of something to be of value. We'll leave it there. I don't want to imagine or project too much.
So back to the print magazines. Bonnie, hi Bonnie. Thank you for chiming in. She says Ayn Rand is not on the cover, but she has a 2-page spread in Look magazine from May 14th, 1979. It's of her arms. She has her arms raised. She's quite older, and I think she's wearing a fur coat. She has her arms raised, and she's standing in the middle of Grand Central Station.
Love that picture.
Yeah, it's great.
And it's a great picture too, because it's a picture of Ayn Rand in the world.
Yeah.
Which is what I want for all of us. I want us all to be in the world. Grand Central Station was not built by objectivists, but it was built by good people. And that should be your relationship with the world. Absolutely.
Yes. And Christopher asks, how old were we when we discovered Ayn Rand? I was 16. Robert, you were about 25 or 20?
Yeah. I first read The Fountainhead in high school, I thought it was great, but it went only so far. I reread it at 25, and that's when it really hit home.
Yeah.
Read Atlas Shrugged after that. Within a couple of years, I was heavy into the philosophy, and within 5 years after that, I was attending my first conference.
Yeah. Yeah, and Greg says Brian Hooker's version of Cyrano de Bergerac book has been ordered.
Outstanding.
So we were talking about that at Glow last night.
Yes. And we could, point I'd make real quick on that is you can choose to be Cyrano de Bergerac, and you should. You should regard your good name, your honor, as a supreme value. But unlike Cyrano de Bergerac, you don't have to defend it against people who don't really matter. And that's the Howard Rourke perspective. Howard Rourke doesn't think about enemies at all. He doesn't even think about enemies when arguably he should. So yes, Cyrano de Bergerac is one of those books that you read and it makes you a better man, a better woman just for having read it. It makes you want life to be more like that, and it makes you want you to be more like that. So yes, definitely Cyrano de Bergerac. Make sure you get the Brian Hooker translation, because it is beautiful. It is prose, not just the story, but the way it is translated from the original French into English by Brian Hooker. irreplaceable. Lots of other versions out there. You can find like public domain versions online for free. Pshaw, not the ones you want. Definitely get the Hooker translation.
I'm not sure if it's a question, but Race says some people can just be wrong and not evil. Yes. Yes.
That is crucial, because not only that, they can be wrong about a few things, be right about most things, end up so that they become your political enemies, which doesn't actually mean anything other than they voted against the person you wanted. So yes, people can absolutely be wrong without being evil. I would say it is very rare that people are evil, and it's very rare that just being wrong makes them evil. There's got to be a combination, to really be evil, there's got to be a combination of bad psychology and bad philosophy and bad choices.
And the habit of all of it, especially.
Yes, habitually bad.
Yeah, habitual evasion.
And willfully.
And remember, there's two ways of making mistakes. One is by evasion, which is willfully trying to think that reality is not what it is. And the other one is an honest mistake, like an error of knowledge. You really, in judging people or judging yourself, you've got to take that into consideration. Of course, don't accept unearned guilt if you do make a mistake that's made by honest error. But yeah, it can be difficult to judge a person and actually make that determination that this person has habitual evasion. Do you have habitual evasion?
Yes.
We're trying to Evasion X.
Apollo Zeus from the picture of the guitar picks. Apollo Zeus says, I thought you were someone from a girl band. Great pick, Amy. Amy actually had a bass guitar when she was younger, but you weren't really a player. You weren't a professional until about 10, 12 years ago.
Sure. Yeah, let's say that.
And it wasn't...
I couldn't find people to be in a band with because I was in a hick town. And
unfortunately, the band we eventually formed was not a girl band.
No, I want a girl band in my life at some point. I would love that.
If we have any musicians in our circle who are anywhere near Southeast Michigan, who are girls, women, maybe you could put a girl band together.
I'd like that.
That would be pretty damn awesome.
Yeah, I am about to write some punk songs, just so you know.
I mean, we have women who are regular attendees of Great Lakes Objectivists, but I don't know.
I don't
think... A couple of them are like lapsed musicians. Anyway, another time, but thank you for the comment.
Yes.
And anything else before we summarize and wrap up?
Let's see here. I thought there were some others. Let's see.
Since Tom mentions the rock band Rush helped people become fans of Ayn Rand, I've heard a few people tell me that. You're absolutely right. I know folks who tell that story as well. And the show we used to do on the Ayn Rand Center UK channel, Life on Earth, we actually interviewed Jennifer, who is the world's greatest Rush fan. So you might find that episode. Look for Life on Earth with Robert Nasir. I think it was just me that time, with Jennifer and Rush.
Yeah, and this was over on Facebook, but there's a really lovely guy named Jose. He has like 4 names in his name, but it starts with Jose. And he's a really nice kid. I don't know exactly if he's from Brazil or where, but from down south. And he really loves punk rock music, and he's also big into Ayn Rand as well. But it's really funny that he's
starting an Objectivism Mexico group.
Yeah, he's it looks like he's in his early 20s or something like that, but he's pretty cool. And he and I were conversing about television, the band Television from the late 70s with Tom Verlaine and Richard Hell and Richard Lloyd and all these people. And I just so you know, I have an album recommendation. Robert, you haven't listened to it yet, but it's Television is the name of the band, and Marquee Moon is the name of the album. Like Marquee, MARQUEE, Quee Moon, Moon, Marquee Moon. It's a very underrated album, but it's really, really good. It's really fun. It's different, and it's got that late 70s sort of, it's not progressive rock, and it's not punk rock, but it is different, and it's fun to listen to. Oh, hi, Jennifer. Yes, you are super late.
Well, we were just pointing out, Jennifer, you are a super fan of the band Rush, and we did have a fun conversation, an hour-long interview on Life on Earth. So folks who are interested in the combination of Rush and Ayn Rand should definitely watch and listen to that interview. I was looking at... Oh, there we go, yeah. Rosie Ginsburg, of course, who is the man behind Ayn Rand Center UK, just posted a link which I will share on the internet, but you can find it out there. The name of the episode was Anthem of the Heart, a chat with Jennifer Lionberger. Thank you for that, Rosie. Yeah, Anthem of the Heart, a chat with Jennifer Lionberger.
That's great.
And
yeah,
we did
Jennifer's
108
great.
episodes of that show, and I would say that was one of the top 10, just because Jennifer is awesome. And, I just found the profile of Jose Roberto Briones Hernandez. And what's fun there is, he's not just a punk rock fan, he's a punk rock singer. And he posts pictures of himself, and he looks like, clean-cut American boy, except, of course, South American boy, not an American boy. But then he posts pictures of him lead singing in a hardcore punk rock band. It's too cool. Love that.
Love it. And I just love the fact that he's so young and he knows what I'm talking about when I talk old school punk rock, he knows what I'm saying.
Yeah, he knows bands that I don't even know.
Such great stuff. Great stuff out there, guys. Undiscovered things that are old. Christopher says, I read Atlas Shrugged summer before university. His first professor was John Ridpath. I'm like, this guy sounds too much like that book, LOL. John Ridpath, he passed away a few years ago, and but he was a great guy, great man, great guy, super solid, very well-spoken, and a great writer, and I wish that we could have seen more of him. But yeah. And Canadian, so he was nice, eh? He was nice.
Jim Ashley has a long comment on the Facebook side, and he points out that Veterans Day is a good day to watch 7 Days in May, which may be his favorite military film. He says best political film. And that was actually written by Rod Serling, who was one of Ayn Rand's favorite television writers, and famous for The Twilight Zone, but he was a writer in general. About that film, he says, it has a pacifist lean, but the theme of the movie, as I interpret it, is the sanctity of the Constitution. Holy smoke. And he goes on, but yeah, the idea of the sanctity of the Constitution. Oh, if we only had anybody in politics who respected the Constitution. Those were the days, my friends. And in a couple of years, they will be back, or hopefully will be back. We'll leave that political comment there. But thank you for that, Jim. The reason I always refer to Jim as the writer Jim Ashley is because he writes a lot on philosophy and almost invariably uses movies as examples of ways of explaining the concepts that he's sharing. If you're not already friends with or following Jim Ashley on Facebook, do that thing. Except in the case of the comment that he left on my wall, share that out, because darn it, he deserves it. So there is that. I think that covers much of there's a lot of great comments in the chat, but as far as questions people asked, that's
I think that's about
there's
it.
Some funny stuff in there too, like the female version of Beat It. We're talking about Taylor Swift now. Yeah. I love the Taylor Swift story when we tried to see the Meg Ryan film, and it was intolerable. And we ended up seeing the Taylor Swift concert film instead. We told
Which
you that
was
story
really wonderful.
already. Taylor Swift is awesome.
We really really should rewatch that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big Taylor Swift fan
You know,
as far
we
as her
should
music, but
we have in our circle of friends, we have friends who are really big into Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
We should have a Taylor Swift watch party with that concert and bring it along, and we could all sing along to, at least us, we can try to sing along to songs we don't really know well. But
I
but
know
it
the
was
ones
great.
that were like big pop hits, a couple of them, but
Yeah, it was a great concert film.
it was a great concert film. Yeah, I recognized three of the songs out of the whole thing, and it didn't matter. It's a great sign of a great concert that sometimes it's hard to enjoy songs that you've never heard before. That's why when we had a band, I compelled our lead singer, we've got to play some covers. We can't just play all originals for an hour and a half, 2 hours. But Taylor Swift is so good that you can actually enjoy her originals even if you don't know them.
Right. And you can see her artistry, and her performance ability is amazing.
And she's a musician.
She's a real musician.
I'm always going to be biased in favor of performers who are also actual musicians. She actually plays guitar. She actually plays piano. She actually writes or co-writes her songs. Not that, being a singer isn't a great thing and a great talent, and I admire great singers, but if you're also a musician, there are jokes in there for some of you musicians out there. For example, when, the gig you're going to has a musicians only, entrance, and then the sign also says drummers enter from the rear. Oh, bad drummer jokes. But I tend to be the same way I'm not that way about drummers, but I tend to be that way about singers. Some singers you could call musicians, but if you can actually play a musical instrument too, double props for you. Huge shout out
I would
to Taylor
say you're
Swift.
definitely a singer if you can harmonize at least a little bit.
That's true.
Yeah, because then you're really using your voice as an instrument.
Yeah. Well, we're running long, but this is kind of the conversation I wanted to have. It's been a tough week for a lot of you. For some of you, you think it hasn't been a tough week, except it's made you kind of surly. Maybe not the people who watch or listen to this podcast, but I have seen the surliness of the bad winners online, and it's just kind of good to clear the air here.
Yeah, it's nice to kind of do a reset. One of the things that I remember about Ayn Rand, I think this was from Highlights and Sidelights, either Highlights and Sidelights or The Facets of Ayn Rand. Either way, Marianne Suris was communicating this, I think, which was during the times that Ayn Rand would have people over, which was pretty often, and they would talk about politics and or dreary topics, and everybody would be sitting around kind of depressed. She would make it a point to talk about something upbeat and positive or enlightening or funny or whatever it may be before people left. Because she was from what I've heard and read and all the biographical material I've heard, Ayn Rand was a very considerate friend, especially to Marianne Suris. I loved her, everything that she wrote about Ayn Rand. Yeah, so what do we have here?
Oh, Ron Toole is in the chat and says, "To the victor go the spoils." Yes, absolutely. To the victor go the spoil. And the victor writes the history as well. There are all sorts of good things that come with being the victor.
But yeah, we were just talking about being gracious winners.
But just because being a victor puts you in a position to be an extreme jerk, it doesn't help your cause. It is self-destructive. I know it feels good. Feels real good. You put up with all that crap. Now you won and you can give them all hell. Except it doesn't actually do you any good. Yeah, I know it bolsters the troops if they're looking for that kind of crap. I'm too selfish for that. When I win, I want to keep winning, and you don't keep winning by being a bad winner. So
well, we know.
I agree. I totally agree that to the victor go the spoils. I do think it's worth being judicious about what you do with them spoils.
Well, and how spoiled are the spoils?
I know. I know the answer would be it rallies the troops.
I'm sure he's just trying to be punk rock with us, right?
Well, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And apropos of today's conversation, we still love you. We really do.
That is saying something.
And we got to get together and play more music. We really do.
Yes.
Incidentally, Tom Harrison says the best female pop folk singer ever, Judith Durham.
Yeah, he
Which makes me
mentioned that.
wonder if Tom is Australian.
Oh.
I mean, the Seekers were famous around the world, but
Yeah.
it does make me wonder.
Yeah, I
Since
wonder.
we're talking music.
I'm
But
going to
there
have
we go.
to, I'm going to go down that rabbit hole. Thank you very much, Tom.
Jennifer responds, Chrissy Hind. Well, damn good, yes. And, yeah.
Well, I mean,
But was she better than, you know? And then we'll just start naming female singers that we like.
okay, shoot, what's her name? We Belong,
Pat Benatar.
Pat Benatar.
Pat
She
Benatar.
was a trained opera
Very
singer.
good.
Trained in opera. Amazing voice. And of course, Ann Wilson of Heart. Amazing.
Well, but then Christopher Smith says, "I'll go Joni." I don't think it's fair if you bring in jazz musicians. I mean, Joni Mitchell wasn't a jazz musician, but she kind of was. It's almost like, you rock and roll people. Come on.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
Joni Mitchell is hard to beat.
are we
So,
talking about female songwriters
well,
who sang?
It was originally presented as, I didn't mean to get into a whole conversation. Originally, Tom said best female pop folk singer. The Seekers were well known as a folk kind of pop band.
Cass Elliot. Cass Elliot. I love her.
Too short a career.
Yeah.
Kind of like Karen Carpenter. Too short a career. We lost them too soon.
Yeah, just love her.
Ann Wilson, Apollo Zeus says, Ann Wilson is pretty damn hard to beat. And you've got the whole range there of soft stuff, folk stuff, to hard rock. Absolutely. And Carly Simon is brought up by Jennifer. And
Yeah.
Carly Simon, to me, was a little too pop, a little too yacht rock.
Well, my all-time favorite female singer, is Ella Fitzgerald. Ella Fitzgerald.
I told you, if you go to jazz, you put all
I
the rock
know.
singers to shame.
I know, but
So-
still, I just got to say her name.
It's like pulling out a trump card.
Oh, we can eliminate that word from our language.
Well, context is everything. Folks, thank you for joining us. We could have fun with this all night, but we're not going to. And besides, you left out Cyndi Lauper.
Yeah, well, Cyndi Lauper. I mean, she's not just a singer. She is a stylized singer.
Yes, that's true.
She is her own woman. She is a woman she's a self-made woman. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Nobody like her.
And nobody's claiming Taylor Swift is better than them all. Interesting. Well, she's
the whole package.
She is the whole package. She's
Yeah.
kind of like Cyndi Lauper. She had a whole thing. It wasn't just about the singing, even though the singing is great.
Right.
So, yes. Folks, I feel like we shook it off
Yes.
apropos Taylor Swift, and that's exactly what we are hoping you are doing or have done or will do with us. This was a hell of a week. Shake it off. Get back to the virtue of selfishness. Figure out what is in it for you and go for it. And if there is nothing in it for you, stop the activity, end of the conversation, tell those relatives of yours, sorry, not available, whatever it is. Shake it all off. Practice the virtue of selfishness.
Yes.
Figure out who your people are and then reach out to them. If you don't have any people in your life, reach out via the internet, but also IRL, in real life.
Yes.
Find those clubs, those meetings, those meetups, or just get out in public. Go to a restaurant, go to a show, talk to people, engage, do whatever you can, do whatever you must for your own sake.
Yes.
Be big, large, and selfish. Some people say, oh, well, selfish, I'm going to stay home and eat bonbons all day. A little bit of that, but no,
Yeah,
get out there, folks.
Be rationally and objectively selfish.
We'll talk about it in the coming weeks because Thanksgiving is coming, Christmas is coming. This is the season of good will among men. We'll talk about ways we make that happen. We'll talk about ways to make that happen. If you're not getting enough of that out of life, let's see if we can't make that happen. In the meantime, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. Thank you for helping us shake it off. Hope you can too. There are some links in the show notes that I didn't even get to, largely about reasons to be thankful, reasons to be grateful, conversations that we have had here, and as well with people like James Valiant. Check out those links. They are super awesome. Speaking of checking out links, if you could do me a favor, if you could like and share this show, I would be so grateful. So do that. Help us out. Last week's show, our pre-election show, was one of the most viewed shows we've had in a while. And it was great to see those numbers go up. Would love to see it happen again. Make that difference, and you will earn our gratitude big time. Speaking of gratitude, thank you to the patrons. Thank you to those of you who continue to support this show by putting in a contribution, small or large. It could be $2 a month. It could be $50 a month. I don't think I have anybody more than that. Patreon.com/Robert Nasir. You can find all the links to everything at robertnasir.com.
That's right.
That's right. And with that said, let me put on that stentorious DJ voice. Thank you for joining it. It just doesn't sound sincere. It could sound cool, but I got to figure out how to do this and make it sound sincere. Folks, you are the people who make this show happen. Well, no, they're not. We're the people who make the show happen. But it wouldn't be a show without you, and that part is true. Folks, you're the best. You are the best audience. You may not be the biggest audience in podcasting. We're working on that, but you are definitely the best audience in podcasting. We do not take that for granted. We are grateful to you. Thank you for being us, and that's why, as always, we wish you every success that you so richly deserve. I hope you're full of friends. I hope you're full of money. You may say, Robert, you're full of it. No, I hope your lives are full, and if they're not chalked to the brim, to the top, we're going to help you make that happen. And that's why we also, as always, we wish you love.